It's late April and it's time for another gardening update. In these 2 rows we're growing 6 different types of garlic. In the south row are Bavarian purple, German white porcelain, and purple glazer. In the north row we have Italian artichoke, Persian star, and elephant garlic. We planted all of these last fall. Here's a look at some of our fall planted garlic. I usually plant our garlic about the middle of October. I've done videos on both fall planted garlic and spring planted garlic, so if you want to see those, I'll put links down in the description. Last year I decided to experiment with planting my garlic in the spring, just to see how it would do. One important thing to note if you plant spring garlic is it needs to be cold stratified. If it hasn't been exposed to cold wintertime temperatures, then instead of forming individual cloves, it'll be one solid bulb. I accomplished cold stratification by leaving some garlic in our detached garage all winter. After being in our detached garage all winter, this is what the cloves look like. They've already started to sprout. As an experiment, I'm going to grow some garlic in a grow bag, and some of it will be unstratified. This is what our fall and winter garden looked like back in January. We kept them alive by surrounding them with straw bales covered with plastic. Although most of the plants are going to seed and still alive, everything has been moved around quite a bit, and I'm already using some of the straw bales for other things. There are only a couple of bales left over here by the Swiss chard and the spinach, both of which are going to seed. Next to those, I have several grow bags with peas started in them. And we have a bunch of wheat that's growing because of the straw bales. I use some of the straw to cover a few things, like these peas that are in the ground. We went from weather in the 80s Fahrenheit to a couple of cold freezes at night. And because of that, we did lose a few plants and some others were damaged. Over by this pea that already has a bloom on it, we have some volunteer amaranth coming up. I noticed several plants scattered around the straw. I'll probably transplant a few of those later on. At the end of the row of peas, we have some radishes planted that haven't sprouted yet. When the temperatures were in the 80s Fahrenheit, I went ahead and uncovered the Musa Basjou bananas, and they were already starting to grow. But after our recent hard freeze, instead of being green and growing, they're now black and dead looking. But I'm very confident that these will be fine and they'll start growing again soon. Musa Basjou bananas are very hardy, and in a few months, instead of being dead looking, they'll look something like this. And in our Zone 6B garden, they have time to get to about 12 feet tall, or a little over 3.5 meters. We also grow Musa velutina bananas that have pretty pink flowers that also produce pink bananas. But it's way too early to tell if these made it through the winter or not. Some of you might remember that we grew some herbs in some grow bags last year, and these tiny little chives I transplanted into the ground in the fall. And this is what one clump of them looks like now. It's already starting to flower. Another herb that we transplanted from the grow bag into the ground was oregano. And this is what the oregano looks like now. It's kind of small, but it's very healthy looking, and I'm sure it'll do fine right where it's at. We've been using this old hollow stump to grow flowers in for several years now. I think this year might be its last year because it's starting to rot. This is what it looked like last year with petunias in it. It's a great way to add some color to the garden. Along with the hollow log, I grow petunias in this petunia tower that I made from wire and some landscape fabric. Some of you might remember that single carrot that I overwintered and let go to seed. What you see here are some carrot seedlings grown from those seeds. One row over from the carrots, I planted a row of spinach. And one row over from the spinach, I planted 4 different types of lettuce. And in case you didn't notice from the other clips, I've got an insane number of sunflower seedlings that have sprouted all over the garden. From our fall and winter garden, I went ahead and harvested the carrots that were left in the grow bag. There were quite a few. Here's a look at what we got. There were several different types mixed together. I transplanted the chichimasai and the tatsoi from the grow bags into the ground so they could finish going to seed. I think the honeybees in the area really appreciated the early flowers. As those flowers disappeared, seed pods started to form, and I'll soon have more seeds than I could possibly need. The asparagus was very late this year, probably due to the drought we're having, but the spears that we did get were huge. It's that time of year again when I'm starting to harden off seedlings, getting them ready to go outside for good. I've also started to pot a few plants. Some of those don't look all that great, but I think they'll be fine once we start getting some sunshine again. I also have some of my project peppers outside, and those stay outside all the time unless it gets really cold. Then I move them into the detached garage. Some of these have peppers on them still. I thought I might keep some of these F1s around so we could compare them to the F2s side by side. These snow peas are called Green Beauty, and they have some interesting red flowers and grow very tall. I grew this one last year. This little pepper is Nymphadora crossed with Devil's Claw. I've had this mutant pepper indoors for quite a while, but it's never produced a pepper, so I'm going to put it outdoors and see what happens outdoors. These ahi cachucha peppers and a couple of others don't look so great from the harsh weather they've had to endure. This one is called Orange Ripple, and I topped that one just to slow it down a little bit. Right in front of that one are a couple of little crosses that I did, and next to that is Bingo, and this is a pink off phenotype, and next to that is Nymphadora. Then we have a couple of little mutant peppers. Next to the mutant peppers is one called Aconcagua. I grew Aconcagua last year, and this is what a ripe one looks like. It's a sweet pepper that grows very large. This is one of our 2 plants that we grew last year, and it has quite a few unripe ones on it. And as you can see, if you don't provide some support, the weight of the peppers can break the limbs. Next to the Aconcagua, we have one called Twister. I hear that's a really good one. Then we have one called Mocha Swirl. I have one of those indoors also. That one is a variegated variety that's just starting to show some variegation. In these 4 or 5 gallon grow bags, I started some cilantro, some sweet basil, dill, and fennel. Then in 5 10-gallon grow bags, I planted some radishes, lettuce, carrots, beetroot, and spinach. Some of the spinach has already started to sprout. We already have some peonies that are just about ready to open. As usual, the ants are crawling all over the blooms. Contrary to a popular myth, peonies do not need ants to bloom. The relationship that peonies have with ants is an example of mutualism. Even though I'm hardening a lot of stuff outdoors, I still have a lot of stuff indoors. Here's a look at some of our pepper seedlings along with a few eggplants and tomatoes mixed in. Some of the plants that you see will stay indoors for some of my pepper and tomato projects, but most of what you see will end up outdoors. I'm waiting for a couple of more cold nights to pass, then I'll start moving these outdoors and begin hardening them. We even have a few sweet potato slips still growing. Before these go outdoors, I have a lot of culling to do, especially those small pepper plants. I usually plant a whole lot of seedlings, hoping for those unique phenotypes that I might otherwise miss. I've been trying to do a little culling each day until it all gets done. That little white rectangular shaped object there is a sensor for my thermometer. That way I can monitor the temperature and humidity from the other room. I mentioned unique phenotypes. That tiny seedling with the other larger seedlings is very unique in that it started out yellow with 3 cotyledon leaves, and the first true leaves are also starting pale yellow. Then they slowly change to green as they grow. As you can see, it's very stunted compared to its siblings. Here's a look at some of those roots from the sweet potatoes that I suspended in water inside a jar. Then once those vines at the top grow long enough, I cut those off, put those in a jar, and they root also. And that's what I'll plant out in the garden. I'll probably be planting some of those within the next week or so. Feel free to share what you have going on in your garden this time of year. And if you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.